Hi, everyone. It's KinderArt Andrea with you here, and we are going to create pop art owls today. So before we get started, I'll just go through the materials that you can use today. All you need is a piece of paper. Any paper will do. This is my sheet of paper. So this is about the size of a sheet of paper that comes out of your computer printer. So 8.5 by 11, 9 by 12. This one's a little bit thicker than computer paper, but yours does not need to be. We will be working with crayons today, and that's why you don't need to worry about the paper being too thick. Now, if you choose to, you can paint your drawing that we're going to be making. If you do that, you'll want to start with a piece of paper like mine that's a little bit thicker than computer paper, just so that the paint doesn't go all the way through. The other thing you will need today is a marker. I'm using a Sharpie marker, and I really like these, but they are permanent markers. If you're not comfortable using a permanent marker, you can use a regular Crayola marker. But if you're going to be painting, make sure you use a permanent marker. And the reason for that is if water gets on a washable Crayola marker, that marker will act like paint. It will kind of start to run all across your page. So if you want your markers lines to stay where they are, use a permanent marker. You also have the option of starting with pencil first. So if you'd like to just follow along with me and do your drawing with pencil, you can do that, and then you can go back and trace over your lines with a marker. Okay, so that's basically all you will need today: paper, crayons, and a marker, and a pencil if you choose to. So today, you can see behind me, we've got some owls for inspiration. We will be doing a pop art owl drawing. And I love owls because owls have such wonderful personalities. They've got those great big eyes and those sharp little beaks, and they've got those sharp talons. And they're kind of interesting. And you can see the ones behind me. They almost look like they have ears, but they don't. These are not ears. I mean, they do have ears, but these are not ears. And they're not horns. They're actually tufts of feathers, little feather tufts. And so the owls we're drawing today are inspired by great horned owls. And I'm just going to share my screen with you, and you'll be able to see. Okay, so hopefully you can see on your screen a number of different owls. And you can see the one right on the top left. It says great horned owl. And that's where you see these kind of, they look like horns on the tops of their heads, but they're not. They're little feather tufts. And that's how they got their name. They look like horns. And this is the owl that is inspiring the piece that we'll be doing today. Great big eyes, little tufts of feathers on the top of the head, and really sharp feet, really sharp talons. But you can see here there are a number of different kinds of owls. In fact, there's over 200 species of owls in the world. So you can see just a few of them here. You can see the great horned owl, the barred owl, the saw-whet owl, which is a kind of a small one, small owl, whereas the great horned owl is a very large owl. There's also a barn owl, a snowy owl, and a screech owl. So those are just a few kinds of owls. If you want to learn more about owls once you're finished doing your drawing, you can go to owlpages.com and you'll find all kinds of wonderful information there. Just going to show you one more screen with a few more pictures of owls. And you can see the great horned owl right smack dab in the middle of the page. Again, those really fun kind of feather tufts on the top of the head and really, really big eyes and sharp beaks. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind while we're doing our owl drawings. So I'm just going to stop the share of my screen, and I'm back with you, and we're going to get started. I'm sure you're anxious to start. So what I've done is I have my paper just on a clipboard, excuse me, and I've got my marker, and you can just follow along with me. But you know what? You might like to see an example of what we're doing. So I'm going to do that very quickly. Show you what we are aiming for. Oh, and I almost forgot the most important thing, the pop art part of the owl drawing. Now, pop art was an art movement from kind of a long time ago. If you're younger, then it's way before you were born. And the thing about pop art, it was very, very colorful and bright and bold. And so that's why our owls that we're doing today are also going to be bright, colorful, and bold. So we're not going to be making owls that look like the real thing. They would probably be more brown, gray, black. Our owls are going to be any color you choose, as long as it's nice, bright color. So this is one that was created with crayons, which is what we're using today. And I love crayons because you can take them anywhere. You don't need water to make them work. And you can layer them and make all sorts of other colors with them. So that's what we're using today. This is a crayon version. I will show you a painted version. This one was painted with watercolor paints. And it's just kind of a different effect. And you certainly can do a watercolor painting if you like today, or you can do the crayon along with me, and then you can go back and watch the video and do one with paint later on. My one tip for you with the paint is if you're painting with watercolor, if you're painting something right next to something else and it's wet, you can expect those paint colors to kind of run together. So to avoid that, unless you want that to happen, then it's a good idea to kind of jump around your page. So you would paint up here, then you would paint down there, then you'd come back here. You kind of jump around and pick the dry areas. Okay, enough talking about that. Back to our owl drawings. So we've got our paper. We have our marker. We'll make sure that my marker is working, and it is. So the very first thing we're going to do is we would like to work large, which means we want our owl to fill up most of our paper. So we don't want a tiny little owl, although that's fine too. Today, I'd like you to work nice and big, kind of covering the whole page. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to draw kind of a big U shape. Okay, it's like a really big upside down arch shape. So you can start wherever you're comfortable, depending on if you're left or right-handed, you can draw that U shape. So here we go. It does not have to be perfect. There, a U shape. So that's step one. Step two is to kind of close off that U shape with a line that joins up. Your lines do not have to be perfectly straight. If there's a little wobble, that's okay. If there's kind of, you can see on mine, it kind of goes in a little bit. It's not identical to the other side. That's fine. These owls do not have to be perfect. In fact, owls aren't perfect. Nothing is perfect. So when we're making art, it doesn't matter if our lines are a little bit wonky. In fact, it makes it kind of more interesting when we do that. All right, so we've got our main body shape, but we need to add those feather tufts at the top that look a little bit like horns. So to do that, we just go to either side and we just draw some kind of squiggly lines that come out either side. All right. So now we've got the owl body and we've got those feather tufts. Now, the most important thing about owls, and you can see them here, are these great big eyes. So that's the next thing we're going to draw. We're going to draw two large circles near the top of this owl. And again, don't try to make the circles exactly the same because it would be very, very difficult to do that. If you do want them to be the same, you can trace around something round, and then I suppose you would have the same size circles, but you don't need to do that. If one eye is a little bit smaller and one's a bit bigger, that just gives them character. Okay, so I'm going to draw big circle, big circle. And you can see mine are not completely identical, and that's okay. All right, so great big eyes. And then we're going to draw two smaller circles inside those bigger circles. Just like that. Okay, and then we will fill those in with black. You can do that now. I might do that now, just to kind of fill in those eyes. If you're working with pencil, then you don't have to worry about this at this point because you'll go back and trace over your lines. And sometimes it's nice to work with marker because if something doesn't quite work out the way you like, you're kind of forced to change it into something else. But I understand if some of you aren't comfortable with that, and that's why it's okay to use pencil first. Okay, so now we've got almost all of our owl drawn, but we also need to have a sharp little beak, right? Kind of somewhere in the middle of where the eyes are. So to do a beak, I like to kind of draw, I can show you here, a little kind of curved line at the top, and then 2 straight lines that come down to a little point. But you can just draw a little triangle, an upside down triangle. That works too. So now we're kind of getting a little face happening here, aren't we? Yeah. Next thing I'm going to do is draw some curved lines on either side of the body to create wings. So I'm just going to come in here and in there. There's a couple of wing shapes on either side of the owl. And next, I think I'll give him some feet. These don't have to look like actual owl feet. I'm just going to draw some lines that kind of look a little bit like they could be bird feet. Now, owl feet, if you go to that website, owlpages.com, you'll be able to really take a good look at them. They almost look hairy, like they're really kind of furry, and they're thick and they're large, right? So this just kind of gives the effect because we're not trying to do a completely realistic drawing here. This is just our impression of an owl. And what I'm going to do next is a whole bunch of tiny U shapes. These will represent the feathers on the belly of the owl. And I'm going to go all the way down with these little U's. They're curved lines. And when it comes time to add color to the owls, you can really have fun with these feathers. You can make them all different colors if you like. Okay, you're just filling in and giving the effect of feathers. So this is called texture. You're adding marks to make something look like it's kind of feathery, right? And one more thing I'll do, I'm just going to draw some repeated curved lines just because I want to create some spaces to add different colors on the owl. There. And now you should have something that looks like an owl. And it won't look like mine, and it does not have to look exactly like mine because it has to look like yours, right? Because we're doing the pop art owls, and I showed you earlier, this one. See what in the background, it's not just one color, it's 4 different colors. So we will create lines so that we can have 4 different colors in the background of our owl drawing to really give it that pop art feel. So to do that, I'm just finding sort of the center point of my paper and drawing a line down and skipping over my owl and drawing a line down. So now I've created 2 spaces in the background, and I'm going to do the same thing on the side, kind of find the center. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center. And 2 lines there will create 4 different sections for the owl. All right, so now it's time to add some color. I'm just going to set my drawing down while I get my crayons. And I have a big bucket of crayons. I'm going to show you my big bucket of crayons. These are crayons that I've collected through the years and I've taken in and out of classrooms. And so it's a great big bucket of crayons. So you might have a box of crayons at home. You might have a basket or a bucket like I do. And so what I'm doing when I'm going to add color to my owl, I'm not going to think about it too much. I'm just going to kind of reach my hand into the bucket and see what color I end up with. And I'm going to start probably with, let's see, I'm going to start kind of with this part of the owl, kind of like the top part of his head. And I am going to take, let's see, this color here. It's called melon. And I'm just going to start coloring. And you can do this along with me. So this color is kind of like a pinky color. And I'm just going to fill that in. All right, I'm going to lay this down. So when you're coloring with crayons, I don't know if you've ever tried this, but you can layer one color on top of another color. So let's say you choose a color and you start coloring and you look at your drawing, you say, I like that color. I didn't think it was going to be that color. One way to avoid that is you can have a separate sheet of paper where you're testing your colors before you put them on your drawing. But another thing you can do is you can change that color into a different one just by adding another color on top. So that's what makes crayons kind of fun and unique. So I'm going to try that here because this color that I chose, it's not really as bright as maybe I would like it to be. You can see it's kind of like a pinky, peachy orange. So on top of this color, I think I will add maybe something a little orangier. Well, this looks nice and orange. This one, in fact, is called orange, straight orange. So because I've got a color that's very similar, I can go over top and kind of change the look of that color. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but it's just making it a little bit darker. So that's just a little tip. And I mean, you can just keep on layering too. You can add as many colors as you like. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about all these feathers in here. And remember I said we could do multicolored? Here you can see there's probably about 3 different colors used on those feathers. On this, on the painting, only 2 colors were used, and then that background is a different color, the background in between all of the feathers. So I think on this one, I'm going to just go wild with my colors. And I will just grab and see what I get. I've got purple. So what I like to do is kind of jump around. So I've got a little bit of purple here, a little bit of purple there. And if I'm going too fast, all you need to do, pause the video, and then you can catch up. Or you can watch the whole video, see what I've done, and then go back and do it yourself. Whatever way works for you. So because these feathers are on kind of a background area, you can kind of fill them in up to a certain point, right? Because there's going to be areas that need to be filled in behind. And I'll show you what that means as we get a little bit further. So I've got a whole bunch of purple areas. My crayon down. I think I will take this green crayon. Looks almost like a turquoisey green. I'm going to fill those in. Just kind of pick and choose. It's kind of like playing hopscotch, right? Jumping around the feathers. Now, some people say owls can turn their heads completely and totally around. They can't do that, but they can almost turn it around. They can turn it around, I think it's 260 degrees. And the reason they do that is because these eyes, the eyes that owls have, they're set back really far in their heads. So in order for them to see something, they can't just kind of look left or look right. They have to turn their whole head in order to see. So it's very helpful for them that they have heads that can turn almost completely around. Pretty neat, isn't it? All right, so I've got purple, I've got green, I've just grabbed a blue. This is called sky blue. I love the color names in crayons, don't you? I'm gonna add some sky blue, and I think I'm already thinking about what color I'm going to be drawing or adding in behind all of these feathers. I'd like to do probably a red. And something you may or may not have noticed is the colors I've chosen, quite by accident, are what are known as cool colors. So cool colors are colors that make us think of things that are cold or cool or icy. So they are colors which include green, blue, and purple. Warm colors are colors that make us think of things that are warm, like fire and the sun. And those colors are red, yellow, and orange. So I'm going to add a nice warm color in behind all of these cool colors. So you see what I mean by in behind? I mean, I've colored in all these little kind of feather areas, but there's a lot of space in between. So you could leave that blank, you could leave it white, but if you fill it in, kind of completes your picture a little bit. So I'm adding some red. And you'll find with crayons, if you push really hard, sometimes your crayon breaks. That's one thing that happens. But if you push really hard, you get a much deeper or richer color, a darker color, than if you press lightly. So I'm just pressing lightly because it's a little bit tricky to color sideways like I'm doing. But you can see what starts to happen. We're filling in all of those spaces, right? With the warm colors. So if you think about the colors on a color wheel or the colors of a rainbow, they're usually organized by warm and cool colors, right? So if you think about a rainbow, it's red, orange, yellow, which are the warm colors, green, blue, indigo, which is a type of blue, violet. So those are the cool colors. So that's how you can remember that. Okay, so I've done that really quickly just so that we can move through. But now I've got the top of the head and I've got that body with the feathers filled in with color. And I'm just going to add some color to the beak. In that case, I'm going to grab yellow. This is kind of a golden yellow. It's called dandelion. And I'll just fill that in. I'm going to push kind of hard so that we can see this yellow on the camera screen. So it's coming together. And remember when we did these extra lines here, that makes some nice areas that we can fill in with color. So it's not just one color wing, we can add 3 colors for the wing. I'm going to do that now. I'm choosing, this looks like it could be turquoise, kind of a greeny blue. And I'm going to do the same thing on one side as I do on the other. You don't need to do that. I'm just choosing to do that. Okay, so I've got the blue. And what color haven't I used? I think I've used almost all of them, but I think I'll choose orange. And then I think on the outside of that, I'm going to add, let me see. I think I'm going to go with red, but I'm going to press kind of hard so that it's a really deep red. Let me find my red. This looks promising. This is called Wild Strawberry. So I'm going to color kind of a pinky red. And you know what? I'm going to use that color for the feather tufts at the top too. One thing about owls too that you won't see, let's put that down. They don't have ears that you can see. They do have ears, but their ears are tiny little holes and they're inside their head. So they don't have big ears, kind of like a dog has like ears that kind of flop around. Owls' ears are hidden inside. And fun fact, with owls, one ear is positioned a little bit higher than the other one on the head. So it's not like we have our ears on the same, it's kind of on the same level, one here, one here. Owls have them kind of at different heights. So that's a fun fact. After this is done, you'll have to do a little bit of research and find out all you can about owls and find out what kinds of owls you have where you live. Here we go. So then what's left is to fill in the background. And remember we talked about pop art having really bright colors. I'll just show you here again. Remember like that nice colorful background. The other thing is you want to try and pick colors that aren't the same as the owl color. So because I use that kind of melon color, that peachy color there, I probably wouldn't use that right beside it because then you wouldn't really be able to see the owl standing out from that background. So instead I've chosen green, yellow, green. And I'm going to just color that in. I'm going to lay this down while I do that. And yeah, so you can kind of start to research a little bit about owls, maybe find out what owls live in the area where you live. I know where I live in New Brunswick, Canada, we have a lot of barred owls. So we see them not too often because owls are very active at night. They're nocturnal. So we don't generally see them, we hear them, But we did see an owl, a barred owl, one afternoon. My daughter actually saw it, and she told my husband, "Stop the car, there's a barred owl." Didn't say barred, there's an owl. And we said, "No, that's impossible. The middle of the day." And sure enough, my husband stopped the car and he backed up, and there, sitting on a tree stump, was a barred owl. And as soon as we got close, it left. It flew off. But that was a really fun thing to see. So you'll have to find out what kinds of owls live in your part of the world. So it might be tricky to see here, but that's kind of a yellowy green in that corner. And then I can kind of choose colors for the rest. So let me see, what do we think? I'm thinking maybe green over here. I like a nice, because that green was more yellow than green. Oh, it looks pretty good. And if you do your owl drawing, if you do a pop art owl, I would absolutely love to see what you did. So maybe we can have your parents post it online, or you can send it to me at Andrea at KinderArt.com. I always love seeing what you do. And you can kind of think about maybe giving your owl a name. You could even create a story about your owl. Where did your owl come from? Where does it live? What do owls eat? You know what owls eat? So there's green. Again, that's kind of tricky to see. So now we've got yellow and green in the background. And I'm going to use purple because we didn't do a lot of purple. I'm just testing my color on a separate sheet of paper. It's always a good idea to do that. Okay. Do you know what a group of owls is called? Like when you get a whole bunch of them together, more than one? You know, with cows, we talk about a herd of cows, right? Owls, when you get more than one together, it's called a parliament of owls. So that's a little fun fact about owls. So I'm just adding this purple. And again, you can take a little more time than I'm taking. I'm just kind of wanting to show you how this is done. I'm getting excited about having the picture finished too, to see how it looks. So I filled in some purple. And I think I need something kind of warm up here too. So I have kind of this pinky red. I'm going to look for like a deeper, maybe like a scarlet red, something like a stop sign red. Let's see if I have something like that. I think I do. Okay. And when you think about the sounds that an owl makes, I think we all kind of think of the same thing. We think they say hoo, right, or hoot. And lots of them do, but some owls don't make hooting sounds. Some of them hiss, some of them screech. So if you're ever in an area at night where you know that owls are living, you can open your window or you can go outside with your parent, with a grown-up, and see if you can hear different sounds that might be owls. You can go to that website, owlpages.com, or you can find another website. Just go online and find owl sounds, and then you can see if you can actually hear owl. I'm just filling this in. It's hard to tell on the screen. This red is actually quite different from this one. On the screen, it looks kind of the same, but here, this red is a lot pinkier. So I'm just going to lay this down to fill it in. And then, remember what I said before about being able to kind of layer colors? I think I might do that here. And that's the nice thing about art. You can complete your work, you can kind of set it aside, you can take a break from it, and then maybe if you look at it a little bit later, you might say, oh, maybe I kind of want to add this, or I maybe wish I did this differently. So you have a chance to do that. But the really cool thing about art, what I love about art, is the fact that when you're finished making something, you've created something that didn't exist before. You start with a blank sheet of paper or a blank piece of canvas or just a lump of clay, and then all of a sudden there's something that didn't exist before you made it. So that's very cool. So there, a pop art owl. And you'll have to look into what pop art is too. It's a pretty colorful style of art that you might enjoy. So I really hope you had fun making pop art owls. And there's our other one from before. And again, if you make one, make sure that you send it to me, Andrea at KinderArt.com, because I love to see the work that you do. All right, have fun. And if it doesn't work out the first time, it's okay. You can try again, because like with anything in life, the first time you do it, it might not work so well. The second time you do it, it might work a little bit better. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And art is no different. So have fun with it, keep creating, and have a great day. Thanks for being with me. Bye.